Hi, I'm Christine Russo, and welcome to What Just Happened. Today, we welcome Evan Armstrong of RILA. Hi, Evan. It's great to have you.
Hi, Christine.
Thanks for coming. Really excited to, first of all, put a spotlight on what RILA is doing in general, and then also what you're doing at RILA, because there are different main focus areas. Why don't you walk us through that, and then we can get into it.
I'll start out with a little bit of who RILA is. We're the Retail Industry Leaders Association. We are what our name suggests. We represent the largest, most innovative retailers in the country. We're based here in Washington, D.C., and we do a couple priority things for our members, one of which is public policy and advocacy, which is what I do on a day-to-day basis with our public affairs team. But we also put on great events for our members who have the ability to get together, benchmark with their peers at both small meetings with specific to issue areas like HR or trade. But we also have major conventions like supply chain, our Link conference, which is coming up soon.
There's a lot going on in policy right now, obviously. It's actually crazy. So I'm sure you guys are very busy.
Whenever there's a change in administration, it's always a very busy time. There was several major topics of debate during the presidential campaign. Some of those issues we're starting to see come to fruition. One of the major ones for our members in our industry is tariffs. Obviously, President Trump has made that a priority pillar of his economic and foreign affairs policy, and the tax policy being a high priority, given that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which was passed in the first Trump administration, is up for renewal later this year. And both the House and Senate Republican majorities are working with the White House to develop what that tax plan looks like. And obviously, it's a major priority for our member company.
What does that mean for RILA? Are you able to be reactive? Are you in information gathering mode? These things usually move pretty slowly. Things are getting done rather chaotically. I think even Ken Griffin referred to it as chaos, where there's usually a very planned, methodical approach to policy. How do you handle this current situation?
Yeah, obviously it's fast moving. This president and his team are using the executive order authority that every president has, but they're using it, I think, it more dramatically, more vigorously than perhaps other administrations. But the major topics that I mentioned, tariffs and trade and immigration, we have known that these were going to be major topics, and we have spent a year or more preparing ourselves and our members for the reality that we're facing in 2025, especially tax. Everybody has known that those tax provisions are going to expire later this year. So that was always going to be a top tier priority. And it's no surprise. I think one of the most consistent things about Donald Trump has been his view of tariffs as a tool for many different ends. You go back to the 1980s and he was pro-tariff. And we have known this. It's something that we have prepared and been speaking to our members for a long time. And certainly it is fast moving, but I don't think anything has been unexpected.
I like to talk about policy as it relates to retail. If you've been talking about it for a year, what support have you been providing?
So the way we support our members is obviously information facilitation, right? They know what is going to happen, what is happening, what might happen, because we are connected with the Hill, with the administration, with key stakeholders in whatever area we're talking about. For example, trade, right? We have been studying potential impacts of tariffs in a lot of different ways and how they will affect retailers and our members. So knowing that we have situation planning, we've been doing that for a while, has allowed us to prepare responses or strategies to deal or to engage with the administration, knowing what we know. We knew that they were going to be very active here. We speak to our members all the time. We share intel. They share their view of how things will impact their operations, and we're able to translate that and effectively advocate for the industry and our members on the Hill.
What were you talking to them about and focusing about and being connected to the Hill about prior to this administration? What was a priority?
During the Biden administration, tariffs were still a priority because I think it gets lost a little bit. But President Biden more or less kept the tariff policies from the first Trump administration. So it has been a through line over the last several years. For me personally, what I was mostly focused on during the Biden administration was his prioritization of issues related to organized labor. So that is my main focus area, is workforce policy. So I am an expert and share that information with our members around what's happening at the Department of Labor, at the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, and those types of agencies. And President Biden was very active and notably did not hide the ball that he wanted those agencies to be very vigorous in their enforcement and pushing policies that they felt were pro-labor, pro-worker, and many times I think undercut or did not understand the retail industry. And so my job was to communicate why certain policies would be harmful, not only to the industry, but to workers in the industry as well. For example, we were engaged with the Department of Labor on their rulemaking around increasing the threshold for overtime for exempt versus non-exempt. What we do not want is an increase so large that it would disrupt retail operations on the ground. And what I mean by that is who can be considered a store manager and what salary they would have to have. And so if you increase that threshold very dramatically over a short period of time, there's a lot of retailers, major retailers, where they'd have to rethink wholesale policies around store manager salaries, and that could impact the ability to hire more people at that store or be able to promote people into those manager jobs.
Thanks for sharing that. I've noticed that RILA's breadth is Main Street to mega cap, and your focus is the power of people. Retail is people. Retail is driven by people. Let's get some color around your perspectives around the human factor in the industry.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's certainly something that we lean into quite a bit. And certainly in my role as Vice President of Workforce Policy, we do like to say retail's first job, second chance, third act, a side hustle. It can be a full-time job. It can be part-time. It can be hourly. It could be salaried, and it could be a lifelong career, right? We like to preserve the optionality that retail is a home for many different people for many different reasons. And part of what I was mentioning before, some of the policy positions of administrations past would harm that flexibility or would harm our desire to be a home for as many types of workers as possible. So we really absolutely lean into that when we speak to policymakers on the Hill.
I find that removal of DEI policies to be harmful to people coming into retail, or at least wanting a career.
It's a common story in retail where folks start at an entry level at one organization and really move their way up. There's many stories about that. I think of one of my favorite RILA members is Publix, and I think their average tenure is like 25 years because they have such a great culture there. When you think about retail, all of the HR leaders that I speak to, their goal is to cast the widest talent pool possible so that they can draw in the best talent across the organization at every level. That is certainly something that we're going to continue to talk about. We have had those conversations with our HR leaders groups about talent recruitment and retention, and I think it will only double down that sort of casting a very wide net.
The whole premise is, all things being equal, we're going to get the best candidate. But all things are not equal. I do think that given that retail is such a great place to have all of those different opportunities, once you want to start, whether it's flexible or whatever, and you can arrange for childcare to grow your career, etc. And I don't know where the industry stands on supporting childcare for employees, because that was an initiative in the prior administration.
I think the retail industry prides itself that they provide opportunities from wherever starting point you are. You can access a retail opportunity. And then I think once somebody is in one of our retailers in whatever capacity, they have any number of different ways that they want to support and foster and develop. And I think one of the biggest concerns or sort of stress points for the HR leaders that I speak to is keeping people in the store, keeping people with the organization and developing them into assistant store managers to store managers. That is the goal for these retailers, is to develop that organic talent. And they have any number of different programs whether it's tuition assistance or their own internal manager development programs, or Lowe's and Home Depot have skilled trades programs where they want to develop the next generation of plumbers and electricians. So I think they see themselves as this home for, it doesn't matter what your circumstances have been, whether you have a criminal history or you maybe don't even have a GED. I think our members really pride themselves as, come into the doors, we're going to get you working, we'll get you started, and in no time you're going to have opportunities to go leaps and bounds beyond, I think, where you started in retail.
Where does RILA and you specifically stand in terms of the conversation around, I'm going to lose my job because of AI and AI development?
It's obviously a big topic. I am not a doomsdayer, technology doomsdayer either. I certainly think throughout modern history, there is always new technology that comes online, and it changes things. And sometimes those changes can be detrimental to certain industries or certain segments, and that is true. That destruction process is real, but there is the creation process as well. So I think we are just starting to really see what the impact of generative AI is going to have. And it's really interesting because it's going to be more white collar focused. I think most of the disruptions we've seen historically, you think of, more of a blue collar thing or agrarian, right? 150 years ago, all the technologies brought people to cities, and just there's always an evolution of who is impacted here. And I think generative AI is really more of a white collar focused prism. And I think that's a new dynamic, but it doesn't change the fact that there are going to be new jobs, new opportunities, new industries created because of Gen AI. And I think it's exciting to see it, but also a little scary. Our members are always leading on technology advancement, right? Through supply chain management, they run massively sophisticated supply chains globally because of technology allows them to do that in many instances. A lot of people and technology. And I think we're looking at AI in the same way on how it can improve retail operations, how it can bolster work productivity, how it can help people do their jobs better. One of the interesting conversations that we're having with our HR leaders group is just navigating some of the tricky areas around AI implementation and HR. How does a recruiter use an AI bot to see more resumes, right? More resumes come in, you get to see more candidates, you get to see hopefully a better, deeper talent pool. But there's some trickiness, and you have to make sure that you're diligent in your compliance and auditing yourself around, you're using these new tools. Are they being implemented in the right way? And I think we're navigating those waters now. And I think pretty much consistently our members do that well.
Some regulation is at the state level. Like New York State enacted the workplace safety law for retail workers, making the argument that if there were essential workers, they should have essential worker protections, like an MTA bus driver.
Certainly retailers want their associates and all employees to be safe, feel safe. This has been a top priority for our association, and to the point where we have created a sister organization in the Vibrant Communities Initiative run by Lisa LeBruno, who does a tremendous job and has been working for years to make sure of cultivating a great relationship with local law enforcement, local DAs, coordinating among retailers in vicinity to make sure that they're tracking crime trends, to make sure that they can do every one of those preventative measures as you can, making sure that they're communicating risks and threats to associates, and then obviously responding appropriately when something does occur, because it will. And I think that's a tremendous amount of work that's been done and will continue to be done, and certainly a priority for our members and the association going forward.
Are you guys involved in the de minimis conversation? Are you lobby one way or the other for that?
Yeah, it's something that we've been part of those conversations for a few years. My colleague Blake, who handles trade policy for us, has been navigating that. And certainly I think as an association, believe that is an area where this administration could flex some trade muscle. We're having those conversations with both the administration and the Hill.
You wake up every day and your objectives for you are what?
Folks know and understand that RILA is considered, an adult in the room. We represent big companies, big brands, and they expect us to be at the table, not jump up and down and scream, but to have good, thoughtful conversations and relay what matters to leading retailers and why certain things are good and bad.
Who's jumping up and down and screaming?
Oh, I would never name names, but some people like to jump up and down and scream about everything. And sometimes when you do that too much, you might get ignored.
The difference between RILA and NRF is?
The main difference is the scope of membership. Ours are only really the largest retailers in the country. I think we have about 115 of the largest retailers. And you think about the biggest volume of sales in every retail pillar, that's who we represent. NRF is a membership of all retail. So from mom and pops across the country can be members of NRF. So our scope of members and our scope of policy positions is a bit different in that respect.
Is Shein a member of RILA?
Shein is not a member of RILA.
Could Shein be a member of RILA?
That's a decision at the board level typically for us, and not privy to those discussions at the board level, but they are not a member right now.
Where I'm going with this is, let's say you have a fast moving, is TikTok Shop a member of RILA?
They are not.
Are they on your radar? Is that a discussion? Because that's a lot of business that they've carved away from essentially everyone.
Yeah, certainly they're on the radar. We know that they exist. There is a way that our association, our board, our leaders think of the association, and they're very thoughtful about the retailers they want in the room for their conversations. I mean, you have to remember why RILA exists. It's to be an entity for the industry leaders, for these folks who have a shared perspective on tax policy, on trade policy, to get in a room and strategize about what public policy positions should be defended or promoted for them. And so to be in the group, you have to be aligned with those positions, and those who are not members, typically there's some conflict there.
That's interesting. Because the fluctuation of administrations, let's keep it like, it could be whatever, the horse and the mouse or whatever. Do organizations drop out because of their political affiliation? There's been a lot on social media. This one is primarily slants this way and actually donates to one party over the other.
Our members expect from us, it is to be able to sit at the table, whoever is in the White House, and have a thoughtful conversation about the retail industry. Our political activity is fairly split evenly. So we have the ability to be seen as trusted and good faith actors by both parties on any number of different topics.
I appreciate it, Evan. Thank you for your time. I hope that this shines a bigger spotlight on the work that you guys are doing, and to keep eyes on the events and the white papers and all the work that you guys do.
I appreciate the opportunity, Christine. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. And that is what just happened. I'm Christine Russo.